Super Mario Maker 2's story mode is weird. Obviously, the Mario Maker series is primarily a level creation tool, hence the maker part of its name. For that reason, you'd think that a story mode in a game like this would be used to help show what players can create using the tools provided to them. That's exactly what the developer levels do in the original Mario Maker. Everything done there can perfectly be recreated in the game's editor. However, that's not exactly the case for Mario Maker 2. While yes, most of the levels can absolutely be made in the game's editor, a few levels contain items and clear conditions that are not provided to the player in the level creator. In fact, 14 of the story mode's 120 levels cannot be recreated in the game's editor. In today's video, I want to take a look at all of the story mode exclusive items and talk about why they may not be available to makers, how they could be helpful if they were added in, and which of the story mode exclusive items I'd like to see come to the editor the most. I also think it'd be fun to review each of the 14 levels here as well, to discuss if I think they use their exclusive concepts well. So for returning viewers of my channel, think of this as sort of a mix between a ranking video, a level by level, and a complaining video. If you enjoyed this, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. At 100k, I'll be ranking every moon in Mario Odyssey, and let's jump right into reviewing every story mode exclusive item in Super Mario Maker 2. So I think for this video, I'm going to cover these in order from least to most useful, which means we're going to be starting out with the only purely aesthetic item, Toadettes Cage. This is seen at the very end of the level Meowser Showdown. Upon completing the level, Toadette will be freed from the cage and will do the little victory dance with Mario. Now obviously the reason this is placed here is because of what happens at this point in the story. Toadette got kidnapped and it's up to Mario to save her, pretty standard stuff. It makes total sense to be here, and of the items in this video, this is definitely the one that makes the most sense to remain in story mode. The cage is completely blocked off by the flag, so we don't know if it would be able to interact with anything, but I think it's safe to say that this would only likely be used aesthetically. Add on to the fact that Toadette is one of the game's playable characters, it wouldn't really make too much sense to have her placed in a cage. This was added purely to help strengthen the story mode's narrative, so it's not really much of an issue that it isn't in the editor. That's not to say a cage item wouldn't have any potential though. Maybe you could place items and enemies inside of it like a question mark block, and it could be opened by either an on-off switch or maybe just by going underneath it like a thwomp. Maybe you could even put items inside of it during gameplay and move that item somewhere else using a track, sort of like a claw. Oh wait, there aren't tracks in 3D World. Forgot. Maybe you could make the player required to break the chain of the cage with, say, a boomerang or a Koopa shell, thus making the cage drop down and freeing the item inside. Obviously, those are all just concepts and clearly not how the item currently works, but if they did want to add the cage in as an item, they definitely could. But either way, of the 8 things we need to cover today, this is the only one understandably cut from the editor. The other 7 though is where the video starts to go a bit downhill. Oh, and I know I said I'd cover the levels these are used in, but since Meowser Showdown isn't about the Toadette cage, it just happens to be there, I'm going to skip over it. I know, I'm sure you all are already writing your hate comments, but oh my gosh, is that cool, Bowser? Our next item is our first clear condition, that being to perform a handstand on X number of trees, with you being able to adjust how many you want the player to do. Well, if it was in the editor anyway. This is featured in 2 separate story mode levels, Treetop Fireballs and Master of the Trees. Now if you for some reason don't know what a clear condition is, it's basically an action you have to do before the flagpole at the end is available to grab. So to clear these levels, you have to climb to the very top of either 12 or 5 trees. Now first things first, unlike Toadette, this condition isn't just added in here to help the story. In fact, these 2 levels aren't anything special story-wise. So without having a story excuse, why isn't it in the editor? I mean, it appears to work perfectly fine in these levels. The base coding of how it works in gameplay is already done, so all they would need to do is just let the player adjust the number of trees. I really can't think of a good reason why they wouldn't have this in, but I can think of a bad one. I did say I'd be covering these from the order of least to most useful, which means that this would be what I believe is the most useless clear condition of the 5. So maybe Nintendo just didn't think the effort was worth it. I think that's incredibly stupid. I mean, they already put in most of the work into it, why not just finish it out? It probably wouldn't have even taken much longer than like an hour to add this in based on what they already have. But say they did add this into the editor, is it really that useful? In all honesty, no, not really, and that's on full display in the levels it's seen in story mode. Them having these conditions add nothing to either of these 2 levels and come off as more of an afterthought. Treetop Fireball starts off as a pretty traditional level where you have to fight against a few fire bros before jumping into a vertical section. From there, you have to climb onto some trees to reach the end. This is a pretty simple level, which I do enjoy, but there's no reason for this to have the tree clear condition at all. Whenever I come back to this level, I always forget to climb up one of the trees at the beginning, causing me to just have to restart the level. To be fair, yeah, that's totally my fault. I mean, the game screams at me what I have to do, but my point is this level isn't helped at all by its condition. This just forces the player to slow down and climb a few trees on the way. This level doesn't even act like a good introduction to trees as an item. It's not until you get to the sub area where you actually need to climb the trees to progress, which means that some players might not know how to do a handstand on trees until much later into the level. Our other level, Master of the Trees, works much better in that regard. This time you only have to climb 5 trees, and all 5 of them are required to beat the level anyways. Actually, you can skip 3 of the trees using some precise jumps. Wow, Odyssey, can't believe you would just spread misinformation like that. I'm gonna make sure that I report this video and tell all of my friends to dislike it. Anyways, most people are going to clear this level by doing a handstand on all 5 trees. It's just the simplest method. That means the clear condition works much better in this level, however, it's still not particularly useful either. I mean, you're already going to be climbing the trees anyway, so it's not like the clear condition changes up the gameplay at all in this level. I'm not saying it's impossible for this condition to be used well, but there isn't really much of a reason to use it. So yeah, it is still pretty dumb that it isn't in the editor, however, not much is really lost from its exclusion. The 2 story mode levels using it could honestly have it removed with barely anything changing, but the same definitely can't be said for our next item. Our next clear condition is one of the limitation clear conditions. In the editor, there are currently 2, never take damage or never land on the ground after leaving it. These types of clear conditions are certainly interesting, which is why it's a shame that we didn't get any more than 2. Well, we did, but of course they're only seen in the story mode. This one requires the player to beat the stage without using a claw. This is only seen in one level, that being Swinging Claw Escape. Unlike the last 2 levels that weren't really affected by their clear condition at all, this one uses it in a fantastic way. Since this condition is all about avoiding claws, this level obviously uses them as obstacles. Claws are really unique in how their hitbox is shaped and with how they move on tracks, making this one of my favorite levels in story mode. They even have a few big coins you can grab behind the claws for any players that want to try for them. The creators of this level do a fantastic job at showcasing some basic ways a clear condition like this could be used. So why is this not in the edit? Okay, calm down. We can't be pulling out the dramatic Bowser music for every entry here, so let's just talk about this one calmly. This is clearly already perfectly programmed into the game. Even if it somehow only works in specifically Super Mario World, it surely wouldn't take that much more effort to add into the other 3 main styles. There are so many different ways you could use this for a level, like maybe you could have a little survival room like this where you have to stay on moving platforms to avoid all the claws around you. Obviously, that's just one small example, but I'm sure people more creative than me could come up with a ton of great claw obstacle courses. So that just raises the question, why did Nintendo cut it? Well, there's obviously no concrete answer, but I do have a theory. A game theory! Okay, so remember how I said that there are only 2 clear conditions that limit the player? Well, maybe the developers felt like this one was just too specific compared to how general the other 2 were, and thought if they added this one in, they probably would need to add in more as well. Now yeah, that's some really stupid logic, but that just might be their way of thinking. Regardless of their reasoning though, this absolutely should have been included in the editor. This is the first one of this video to truly feel as though the game is missing out on something with its exclusion, and we still got quite a few more items to go. This is the other limiting clear condition seen in story mode, this time being to complete the level without exiting the water. This is once again only used in a single level, that being Hold Your Breath. This uses Mario Maker 2's brand new forest theme and its ability to oscillate water levels to make an incredibly interesting patience testing level. The creators also place Magic Koopas at several points during it, making the wait for the water to rise up all the more intense. This is easily my favorite water level in story mode, heck it may even be my favorite water level I've played in this game. The stops never feel annoying as there's always enemies there to keep you on your toes and blocks to try and get the Magic Koopas to hit in order to get extra rewards. The only problem is that, obviously, the condition that makes this level possible isn't usable. Unlike the claw condition, I really can't think of a good reason this isn't in the editor. In fact, of the ones in this video, it's probably the least understandable exclusion. It's very general just like the other 2 limiting conditions, so there's just zero logic to leave it out here. I'd say in terms of usefulness, this and the last one are pretty much tied. They both open up opportunities to make unique levels that cannot be replicated at all with what's currently in the game. I've also always felt that the water gimmick in the forest theme isn't that helpful or cool. Most creators I see either choose to completely ignore it or switch the level to nighttime and make it poison. The creators that do leave the water in usually forget about it and it makes for some easy cheese, but this condition would have actually made this feature significantly more useful. So I guess it'll likely remain a mystery forever as to why this wasn't included in the editor despite being coded perfectly. So our last 4 items for this video are basically 2 pairs of items, as each is an item that is placed in a stage and a clear condition that goes with that item. If that explanation doesn't make sense, then I'm sorry. So our first set has to do with the placeable toads and the clear condition to bring them all to the end of the level. These guys are seen in 4 different levels: Little Toad Lost, Toad Rescue, Operation Total Eclipse, and March of the Rookie Toads. How they work is they will basically be stationary until the player touches them, which will then cause them to follow you. They will mimic your movements perfectly, however it won't be totally smooth sailing to the goal. If the toad gets hit, it'll enter into its bubble, which you then have to pop to get it back. This provides for an incredibly unique form of gameplay that is super far removed from anything else in Mario Maker 2. Let's take a look at all 4 of these levels and see how well they use the concept. Little Toad Lost acts as a simple introduction to the topic, using only a single toad where you and him have to avoid several bullet bills and bonsai bills on an airship. The way the bullets fly make it very easy for Toad to get hit, which makes this a very solid level difficulty-wise. Toad Rescue also only has 1 toad, but it's in the new Super Mario Bros. U Nighttime Sky themes, so... This is definitely a much weaker level than the first because of that. Operation Total Eclipse is a really fun one. It basically takes place entirely in one room where you have to go through several different paths to save the 5 toads within the castle. It's not particularly difficult, but the idea and concept of exploring the castle to find the 5 prisoners inside is really fun, so I like this level a lot. The final level, March of the Rookie Toads, is definitely the best of this set of levels. This doubles the toad count from the last level from 5 to 10. With so many running behind you, it's very difficult to keep them all safe from taking damage. This is made even more difficult by a giant fire piranha plant in a cloud following you throughout the level. Since there isn't any way to kill it, it acts perfectly as a way to torment the toads the entire time. Projectiles in particular are especially good, as while the player may be able to avoid it, one or more of the toads have a good chance of running directly into it. This is definitely a really fun and intense level. But then that brings us to the flaw we've seen in every single item we talked about so far. It isn't in the editor. Now this is definitely the most complicated of the story mode exclusive items, so understanding why it isn't in the editor is a little bit easier. First off, all 4 of these levels take place in the new Super Mario Bros. U game style, which means they likely don't have any sprites made for the toads in the other themes. Now that may seem hard to do, but they already have all the sprites for Blue Toad since he's playable, so really they could have just reused him. The only other problem I could see with this is that it'd be the only item in the game that only works with clear conditions. Like, it'd be completely worthless if the toad clear condition wasn't applied, but that's still not really a big issue. So while there are some excuses that could be made here, there's still no legitimate reason for them not to have brought this over. These would provide for some really unique level concepts. Or just really annoying levels. Could you imagine a little Timmy level but you have to protect 10 toads? You know, maybe cutting this feature was actually a blessing. Well anyways, let's take a look at our last item in clear condition. And our final item here is the stone. This is what I believe to be the single saddest loss of the Mario Maker 2 story mode items, and on top of that, it's one of the least understandable cuts. The stone is a physics-affected block that can be picked up and thrown by the player. Already that makes this an incredibly unique item. The pals are the only other item like this, but they will obviously kill everything on screen when thrown. A physics-affected block is something creators have desperately wanted, as it would allow for so many unique scenarios and machinery. This is featured in the most story mode levels of the exclusive items with a total of 5. Heavy Stone Heave Ho, Buried Stones, Cat Scratch Stone, Stone from the River, and Stone of Destiny. Just like the Toad levels, let's run through each of these quickly and see how well they use the item. Heavy Stone Heave Ho and all the other levels feature our last exclusive clear condition, which is just to carry the stone to the end. This showcases how the stone will also slow Mario's movements and not allow him to jump very high. There's nothing too horribly special about this level, it's just a simple introduction to the item, so it's a fun one to run through. Buried Stones use this item in a very interesting way. While this does still have the condition to carry it to the end, a majority of the stones here are actually used as decoration, which gives this level a really unique look. This level also uses the unique feature in Super Mario World where Yoshi can pick up things through walls, which is showcases by having several coins and 1-ups living in the walls. Definitely one of my favorite levels with this item. Cat Scratch Stone is pretty similar to the first stone level, though this time taking place in 3D World. It plays around with how the stone would work with clear pipes. I especially like how you could do some balling here to get the top of the flagpole. Stone from the River is honestly kind of an annoying level. It shows how the stone would work with water, but there's just far too much waiting for the water to be correct, so let's just move on to Stone of Destiny. This is probably my favorite stone level, as it showcases several different scenarios where the stone could be used. It can move enemies upward, get grabbed by a claw and act as a platform, blocking enemies, and more. This is a phenomenal showcase of the stone's potential uses and levels, so for that, it's definitely the best of the 5. But of course, we can't use the stone in our own levels. This is the most baffling exclusion from all the story mode items, and I really cannot think of a good reason why this isn't in the editor. First off, the clear condition works perfectly fine, so there's no issue there. Even if it didn't, this item works perfectly without it. Unlike the Toads, this could easily be used in a level without the carry to the end condition. Oh yeah, another problem with the Toads is that they were only in the Mario U style. But as we can see with the stone, it's already in Mario 3, Mario World, Mario U, and even 3D World. Why on earth would they model a completely unique item only for it to be used in a single story mode level? They had to have been at least planning on adding this into the editor. It makes absolutely no sense for them to put so much effort in to just not finish it. I mean, the Stone of Destiny level is like the purest example of a simple showcase level to give the players an idea of how to use it, and to just not let them use it after that is absurd. I genuinely cannot come up with a single good excuse as to why this would have been cut. All of the other items, if you squint really hard, you can maybe come up with the reason, but this, there's no excuse for this. Mario Maker 2 should have absolutely kept the stone item. All they did was bait their player base with this in the story mode, leading to obvious annoyance for so many people. Hopefully Mario Maker 3 will be able to rectify this and all of the other items we talked about today. But anyways, that's it for this video. Do you all wish you could imprison Toadette in your levels? Let me know in the comments. I know this is another shorter video, but I hope you all did enjoy this look at the story mode exclusive items regardless. I have a lot of longer videos planned here soon, but unfortunately, they're all for stuff that isn't out yet, so y'all will have to wait a little bit longer before you get those. But if you want to see them, make sure to subscribe to the channel so that you know when they come out. Dry bones for Smash, and I'll see you guys next time.